The bonfire crackled, spitting embers into the night sky, but it was the silence between us that burned hotter. For boys, strangers just hours ago, now bound by a secret so raw it could tear us apart, or make us whole. I, Marcus, stood at the edge of the clearing, my heart pounding as I watched them, wondering how one reckless night could rewrite our lives. It was late August in the Adirondacks, the kind of summer night where the air hums with possibility and the stars feel close enough to touch. I was 22, fresh off a breakup that left me hollow, hitchhiking my way through upstate New York to escape the noise of Syracuse. My denim jacket was frayed, my boots caked in mud, and my only plan was to keep moving. That's when I stumbled across them. 3 guys, barely older than me, parked at a trailhead with a beat-up van and a cooler full of cheap beer. They weren't locals, their accents gave that away. Javier, the one with the warm brown eyes and a laugh that could melt ice, waved me over like we'd known each other forever. "Yo, you lost or just crazy?" he teased, tossing me a can. I caught it, grinned, and that was it. I was in. Javier was 21, a community college kid from San Antonio, on a road trip to find himself before his last semester. He had this easy charm, like he could talk his way out of anything, but his hands fidgeted when he thought no one was looking. Then there was Ethan, 23, all sharp wit and wire-rimmed glasses, a history major from Boston who'd rather debate philosophy than admit he was lonely. And Kai, the youngest at 20, a painter from Seattle with a quiet intensity that made you want to lean in closer, like he saw the world in colors the rest of us missed. We were different in every way, race, background, dreams, but that night, in that clearing, we were just 4 guys chasing something bigger than ourselves. The firelight danced on Javier's face as he strummed a guitar he'd pulled from the van, humming a tune I didn't recognize. Ethan was sprawled on a blanket, arguing with Kai about whether stars had souls. I sat cross-legged, sipping my beer, feeling the weight of my own secrets pressing against my chest. I'd never told anyone I was bi, not my ex, not my family, not even myself out loud. But something about these guys, this place, made me want to spill everything. Maybe it was the way Javier's eyes lingered on me a second too long, or how Kai's smile felt like a promise, or how Ethan's sarcasm hit a softness I couldn't ignore. Whatever it was, I wasn't ready for what came next. "Truth or dare?" Ethan said suddenly, sitting up, his glasses glinting in the firelight. His voice had an edge, like he was daring the universe itself. Kai groaned, but Javier's grin widened. "Oh, I'm in. Let's make this night unforgettable." I shrugged, playing it cool, but my pulse raced. Truth or dare in a group of strangers. That was a recipe for chaos, or something more. Javier went first, picking dare. Ethan, smirking, told him to sing the cheesiest love song he knew to the group. Javier didn't hesitate. He launched into an off-key rendition of "My Heart Will Go On," his arms flung wide like he was on the Titanic. We were howling with laughter by the end, but when his eyes locked on mine during the final note, my breath caught. There was something there, something real. Kai picked Truth next, and Javier asked, "What's the one thing you're most afraid of?" Kai's face tightened, his fingers tracing patterns in the dirt. "Being seen," he said softly. "Really seen." The words hung heavy, and I felt them in my bones. My turn. I chose Truth, because dares felt too dangerous with the way my heart was racing. Ethan leaned forward, his eyes piercing. "What's the one secret you're carrying that could change everything?" My mouth went dry. I could have lied, made up something about a bad grade or a fight with my dad. But the fire, the stars, their faces, they pulled the truth out of me. "I'm bi," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "And I've never told anyone until now." Silence. Then Kai reached out, his hand brushing mine, warm and steady. "Thank you," he said, like I'd given him a gift. Javier's smile softened, and Ethan nodded, like he'd known all along. That's when I realized this wasn't just my secret anymore. It was ours. The game went on, the dares getting bolder, the truths cutting deeper. Javier admitted he'd fallen for a guy back home, but was too scared to act on it. Ethan confessed he felt like a fraud, hiding his doubts about his future behind his sharp tongue. Kai revealed he painted to escape the weight of his family's expectations, but he feared he'd never be enough. Each truth stripped us bare, until we weren't strangers anymore. We were something else, something fragile, something alive. By midnight, the air was electric. Javier dared Kai to dance with him, and they did, clumsy and laughing, their shadows merging in the firelight. Ethan grabbed my hand, pulling me into the chaos, and soon we were all spinning, drunk on beer and something deeper. I don't know who kissed who first. Maybe it was Javier's lips brushing Kai's, or Ethan's hand on my neck, pulling me close. Maybe it was all of us, colliding in a moment that felt like it could stop time. It wasn't just physical, it was raw, honest, a connection that burned through every wall I'd ever built. But secrets don't stay secret forever. As we caught our breath, tangled together on the blanket, headlights sliced through the trees. A truck roared into the clearing, and a voice shouted, "What the hell's going on here?" My stomach dropped. It was a local, some guy from a nearby campsite, his face twisted with disgust. He'd seen us. He knew. The man's voice cut through the night like a blade, his silhouette looming against the headlights. "You freaks think you can do this out here?" he spat, stepping closer, his boots crunching on the gravel. My heart slammed against my ribs as I scrambled to my feet, Javier's hand still warm in mine, Kai and Ethan frozen beside us. "Whoa, man, we're just hanging out," Javier said, his voice steady but his eyes darting to the truck. The guy, mid-30s, burly, with a flannel shirt stretched tight over his shoulders, wasn't alone. Two others climbed out of the truck, their faces shadowed but their intent clear. They weren't here to talk. Ethan stepped forward, his glasses fogged from the cold, his voice sharp. "Back off. We're not hurting anyone." But the man laughed, a low, ugly sound, and my stomach twisted. This was bad. Kai's hand found mine, his fingers trembling but firm. "We should go," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the crackling fire. I nodded, but the men were already fanning out, blocking the path to the van. My mind raced. 4 of us, 3 of them, but we weren't fighters. Javier was still holding the guitar, for God's sake. The air felt thick, like the moment before a storm breaks. "Look, we don't want trouble," I said, raising my hands, trying to sound calm. "We're just passing through." The leader sneered, his eyes raking over us. "Passing through, huh? Looks like you're doing more than that." His words dripped with venom, and I felt Javier tense beside me. I knew that look in his eyes. He wasn't going to let this slide. Before I could stop him, Javier stepped forward, his jaw tight. "You got a problem with us, say it. But don't think you can scare us." The man's face darkened, and he took a step closer, his fist clenched. Ethan grabbed Javier's arm, pulling him back. "Don't," he hissed. "They're looking for a fight." But it was too late. The leader swung, his fist catching Javier's jaw with a sickening crack. Everything exploded. Javier stumbled, blood trickling from his lip, but he didn't go down. He swung back, wild and desperate, and suddenly we were all in it, shoving, shouting, a chaotic blur of fists and fear. Kai yanked me out of the way as one of the men lunged, and Ethan tackled another, his glasses flying into the dirt. I don't know how long it lasted, seconds, maybe minutes, but it felt like forever, the world reduced to the thud of fists and the taste of panic. Then, headlights again. Another car, this time a park ranger's Jeep. The men froze as a woman in a ranger's uniform stepped out, her flashlight cutting through the dark. "Break it up," she barked, her voice commanding. The locals hesitated, then backed off, muttering curses as they retreated to their truck. The ranger turned to us, her expression stern but not unkind. "You boys okay?" Javier wiped blood from his mouth, nodding. "Yeah, thanks. But we weren't okay. Not really." The ranger checked our IDs, told us to clear out by morning, and drove off. We stood there, bruised and shaken, the fire dying at our feet. Kai was trembling, his scarf torn. Ethan's glasses were cracked, and Javier's lip was swelling. I felt like I'd been hollowed out, my chest tight with shame and anger. "We should have just left," Kai said, his voice breaking. "Why didn't we just leave?" Ethan shook his head, picking up his glasses. "Because we shouldn't have to." Javier sank onto the blanket, his hands shaking. "I'm sorry," he said. "I shouldn't have provoked them." I knelt beside him, touching his shoulder. "You didn't start this. They did." We packed up in silence, the magic of the night shattered. But as we climbed into the van, something shifted. Javier reached for Kai's hand, squeezing it gently. Ethan leaned against me, his head on my shoulder. We were battered, but we were still here. Still us. The van rumbled to life, and we drove into the dark, no destination in mind, just the need to keep moving. By dawn, we'd found a diner off the highway, a greasy spoon called Mabel's with flickering neon signs. We slid into a booth, our bruises hidden under jackets and forced smiles. The waitress, an older woman with kind eyes, didn't ask questions as she poured our coffee. Maybe she'd seen guys like us before, lost, searching, carrying something heavy. Javier broke the silence, his voice low. "Last night it wasn't just a fight. It was us, standing up for who we are." Kai nodded, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "I've never felt more alive. Or more scared." Ethan stirred his coffee, his voice quiet but firm. "We're not done. Not with this. Not with each other." I looked at them. Javier's bruised lip, Kai's torn scarf, Ethan's cracked glasses, and felt something swell in my chest. Not just fear or anger, but hope. We'd shared something real, something worth fighting for. And no one could take that away. As the sun rose, painting the diner windows gold, I realized this wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The diner's coffee was bitter, but it grounded me, tethering me to the moment as I watched the others. Javier's fingers traced the rim of his mug, his usual confidence dimmed but not gone. Kai sketched absently on a napkin, his lines sharp and chaotic, like he was trying to draw the storm inside him. Ethan stared out the window, his cracked glasses perched crookedly, his silence louder than words. We were still reeling from the night before, but the weight of what we'd shared, the kisses, the truths, the fight, hung between us, binding us tighter. "We can't go back," I said, breaking the quiet. "Not to who we were before." Javier looked up, his eyes searching mine. "You mean before last night?" I nodded. "Before we knew what it felt like to be us. Together." Kai's pencil stopped, and Ethan turned from the window, his gaze sharp. "So what do we do now?" he asked. "Run? Hide? Pretend it didn't happen?" Javier leaned forward, his voice low but fierce. "We don't hide. We don't pretend. We keep going." His words sparked something in me, a fire that hadn't died in the clearing. But Kai's face clouded. "Keep going where? Back to our lives? To people who don't get it." His voice cracked, and I saw the fear he'd confessed by the fire, being seen, truly seen, and rejected for it. I reached across the table, my hand covering his. "We figure it out. Together." It wasn't a plan, but it was a promise. Ethan smirked, though his eyes were soft. "You're such a sap, Marcus." But he didn't pull away when Javier's knee bumped his under the table. We paid the bill, left Mabel's, and piled back into the van, the road stretching out like an unanswered question. We drove south, toward Albany, no clear destination but a shared need to stay in motion. The van was a mess, empty beer cans, Kai's sketchbook, Ethan's dog-eared philosophy books, but it felt like home. Javier cranked the radio, some old rock song filling the silence, and we started talking. Really talking. About the lives we'd left behind, the people we'd disappointed, the versions of ourselves we'd buried. Javier told us about his dad, a mechanic who'd never understand his son loving a man. Ethan admitted he'd been running from a future he didn't want, one his parents had mapped out in boardrooms and law schools. Kai spoke of his paintings, how they were his truth but also his cage, each stroke a rebellion against his family's expectations. I shared my own story, my ex, who'd laughed when I hinted at my feelings for guys, calling it a phase. I'd believed her for too long. But last night, with them, I'd felt whole for the first time. You guys make me want to be brave, I said, my voice thick. Javier reached back from the driver's seat, squeezing my shoulder. You already are, man. By dusk, we'd reached a small town called Hudson, its streets lined with quirky shops and rainbow flags fluttering in the breeze. It felt like a sign, like the universe was giving us a moment to breathe. We parked near a riverfront park, the Hudson River glinting under the setting sun. Kai pulled out his sketchbook, drawing the four of us as we sat on the grass, our laughter mixing with the sound of the water. Javier leaned against me, his head on my shoulder, and Ethan sprawled beside Kai, reading aloud from a battered copy of Whitman. It was perfect until it wasn't. A group of teens passed by, their whispers sharp and pointed. Fags, one muttered, loud enough to sting. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he kept reading, his voice steady. Kai's pencil froze, and Javier's hand found mine, gripping hard. We didn't react, didn't give them the satisfaction, but the word lingered, a reminder of the world waiting to judge us. I wanted to scream, to fight, but instead, I leaned closer to Javier, letting his warmth anchor me. That night, we found a cheap motel, pooling our cash for a single room with 2 beds. No one suggested splitting up. We pushed the beds together, a silent agreement that we needed to be close. In the dark, Javier's hand found mine. Kai's breath warmed my neck, and Ethan's arm draped over us all. It wasn't about sex, it was about safety, about knowing we weren't alone. But as I drifted to sleep, I couldn't shake the fear that this couldn't last. The world wasn't kind to people like us. The next morning, over gas station coffee, Ethan dropped a bombshell. I got a text from my cousin in Brooklyn. He's got a place we can crash for a few days. His voice was casual, but his eyes betrayed his nerves. Brooklyn meant a bigger stage, more eyes, more risks. But it also meant a chance to be ourselves, to find a place where we didn't have to hide. Javier grinned. Let's do it. New York City, baby. Kai hesitated, then nodded. I'm in. But we stick together, okay? I met their eyes, my heart full. Always. As we drove toward the city, the skyline rising in the distance, I felt the weight of our secret night settling into something new. A promise, a fight, a love worth protecting. Brooklyn's pulse thrummed through the van's windows as we crossed the bridge, the city's lights a kaleidoscope of hope and danger. Ethan's cousin, Leo, lived in a cramped Bushwick apartment, all exposed brick and mismatched furniture, but it was ours for a week. We were 4 boys carrying a secret that felt bigger than the skyline. And as we unpacked our bags, I wondered if this city could hold us or break us. Leo was cool, a 30-year-old artist with a shaved head and a laugh that filled the room. He didn't blink when Ethan introduced us as his crew, but his raised eyebrow told me he saw more than we said. Make yourselves at home, he said, tossing us a set of keys. Just don't burn the place down. We laughed, but the weight of the past few days clung to us, bruises fading, hearts still raw. That first night, we explored the city, weaving through crowded bars and neon-lit streets. Javier danced with strangers, his charm pulling smiles from even the grumpiest locals. Kai sketched the chaos, his pencil capturing the blur of bodies and lights. Ethan and I trailed behind, our shoulders brushing, the unspoken tension between us electric. At a queer bar in Williamsburg, we let go, dancing, laughing, kissing without fear. Javier's lips found Kai's, soft and sure, while Ethan pulled me close, his breath hot against my ear. For the first time, we weren't looking over our shoulders. But freedom comes with a price. On our third day, Kai got a call from his mom. Her voice was sharp through the phone, demanding he come home to Seattle. "You're throwing your life away," she said, loud enough for me to hear. Kai's face crumpled, and he hung up, his hands shaking. "She thinks I'm wasting my talent," he whispered. "She doesn't even know about this." He gestured to us, his eyes wet. Javier knelt beside him, fierce. "You're not wasting anything. You're living." But Kai's doubt lingered, a crack in our fragile bond. Ethan, too, was fraying. His cousin had asked about his plans, and Ethan's silence spoke volumes. "I don't know what I want," he admitted later, sprawled on Leo's couch. "I thought I did, but now," he looked at us, his voice breaking. "You guys make me want more than I thought I could have." I took his hand, my heart aching. "Then let's figure it out. Together." Javier was the anchor, always pushing us forward. He found a community center hosting an open mic night and signed us up to perform as a group. "We tell our story," he said, his eyes blazing. "Our way." Kai painted a backdrop, vibrant swirls of color that screamed defiance. Ethan wrote a poem, sharp and raw, about love that fights to exist. I added a few lines, my voice shaky but honest. Javier strummed his guitar, tying it all together. The night of the performance, the room was packed. Queer kids, artists, strangers who felt like family. We poured our hearts out, our voices weaving together, and when the crowd cheered, I felt invincible. But the world doesn't stop turning. On our last night in Brooklyn, we sat on Leo's rooftop, the city sprawling below us. Javier spoke first, his voice steady. "I'm going back to San Antonio. I need to face my dad, tell him who I am." Kai nodded, his sketchbook closed for once. "I'm staying in Seattle, but I'm done hiding. My art's going to say it all." Ethan adjusted his cracked glasses, a small smile breaking through. "I'm applying to grad school here. Something real, something mine." They looked at me, and I took a breath. I'm not running anymore. Syracuse, maybe, or somewhere new. But I'm living for me now. We held each other as the sun rose, our hands linked, our hearts full. That one night in the Adirondacks had changed everything. But it wasn't the end. It was the spark. We were four boys who'd found each other in the dark, who'd fought and loved and dared to be seen. And though we'd go our separate ways, we'd carry that night forever. A secret that wasn't a secret anymore, but a truth that made us free. As the city woke below us, I realized the real victory wasn't in staying together. It was in knowing we could stand alone, carrying the strength we'd found in each other. We'd changed, and the world would have to catch up.